Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're doing the CFS 6 months look ahead today, and I think for the first time ever we're doing it on a Saturday rather than a Sunday. Normally this would be one of the longer range look aheads that we do on a Sunday, but I've got so many updates stacking up this month that I just haven't got time to get it in really tomorrow, so I thought I'd move it Saturday just this once. Actually, it may appear on Saturdays over the next couple of months while I'm doing the winter updates on Sundays as well. But just a quick say about the CFS 6 months look ahead. Basically, it's, as the name suggests, we're reusing the CFS B2 model. We're going out 6 months ahead with that model as far as we can go with it. Now, obviously, this is highly experimental. It's not to be relied upon. Sort of 1, 2, 3 months away does have some basis, but as you go to sort of 4, 5, 6 months away, really is in the realm of just for fun and don't take it too seriously. The charts are there, so you might as well look at them just to see what the snapshot is for this month. But by no means should you be thinking about the charts that you see sort of January, February in this update are what's going to happen for the winter. So we'll get on that in a moment, but just quickly say about the ads. There's links to articles on all the pages at garethlovethis.com. Have a browse through the widgets. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you can click through and you'll be able to go off and read the article. And thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages. They open out within the content, and when you watch them, they'll close back up again. Thanks so much for getting involved. It's helping to pay for the website, so thanks for doing that. The link to the CFS V2 model is on the links page, so if you want to see these charts for yourself, you certainly can do. Although if you're a cold blow, you want a cold winter, get behind the stage along, that's all I'm saying. And just say about tomorrow's videos, the reason this has been shunted off into Saturday is because tomorrow I'm going to have a look at some analogues for the autumn from my good friend Stuart Markham. So we're having a look at his analogues tomorrow for the autumn in anticipation of the autumn forecast, which will be coming up next weekend. And also tomorrow we've got the latest El Nino update. I think it's getting very exciting now with ENSO. Right, let's get on with CFS 6 months look ahead. That's all coming up tomorrow. Let's get on with CFS 6 months look ahead. Then we're going to start off with the 700 millibar height anomalies from CFS V2, and then we'll go on and have a look at the corresponding temperature and precipitation charts as well. So we're starting off with September, as we know, with height anomalies. Blue is extrapolating to low pressure, and yellow, red, orange, those sort of colours are extrapolating to high pressure. So what we're looking at for September is that we're going to reach sitting to the east of the country with a trough of low pressure in the Atlantic. So it's a battleground UK month, really. The jet stream is coming in something like that. And we're also bringing the air up probably from an east to southeasty direction like that. So that's a bit in between. Anything could happen in that sort of scenario. It could be transition. We could get sort of lots of high pressure through the early part of the period, and then maybe transition into low pressure in the second half of the period. So we'll have a look at seeing what the temperature and precipitation charts show with that, but it really is one of those months that could go either way. To be honest, it could be relatively settled, or it could be quite an unsettled month. Now, no qualms about what this is showing, and it is an unsettled month. We've got the ridge slipping down to the south then, setting up to the south and the southwest. This trough of low pressure is becoming really deep in the Atlantic. And look at the flow. The flow is coming right through the country via the jet stream. So it's an unsettled month, probably increasingly unsettled, really, with that deep trough of low pressure, anomalous trough around Greenland and Iceland, possibly producing a fair number of heavy bouts of rain and maybe strong winds as well. Things deteriorate further as we go through into November. Look at this. That trough is very, very deep in November. A deep trough of low pressure sitting to the north and the northwest. The ridge by this point has gone down to the south. So it's around the Azores and Spain and Portugal. It's a flat westerly flow coming across the Atlantic. Now, you have to bear in mind that the Atlantic is relatively cold this year. In fact, it's probably its coldest since the early 1990s, if not further back, maybe into the 1980s. So westerly winds are not going to be as mild as you would expect them to be. So this could be a relatively coolish month, actually. Probably very wet, probably quite stormy. And I wouldn't be ruling out the chance of some wintry weather, actually, because the Atlantic is in such a cold state at the moment. Will knock a couple of degrees off the temperature. So if the wind's going to the northwest, as an area of low pressure clears, for instance. It will be a colder sort of west-northwesterly than you would expect. But overall, it's not a cold month. It isn't a cold sort of pattern. We haven't got that block of high pressure sitting over Greenland or Scandinavia. Actually, it's the reverse of that. It's a very westerly November. December really continues it. It may turn a little bit drier, particularly down in the south, but overall, a deep trough of low pressure gain around Greenland and Iceland, ridging down to the south and the southwest of the country, and the jet stream is running through rather like that. So it's another changeable month, probably another wet month. It's also probably a milder month as well, because of that ridge sort of building up over Spain and southern parts of France. That's probably dragging in very mild air. We'll have a look at the temperature of precipitation along as it goes with this, but it's probably dragging up very mild air from a southwesterly point in the tropical part of the Atlantic. We get through to January. As I hinted at, it is a bit of a horror show, this. If you want a cold winter, get behind the sage long, because this is pretty much about as bad as it gets, to be honest. If you want a cold winter, we've got a deep trough of low pressure still in the central part of the Atlantic. Or actually, it's not as deep as it is through November and December. It's a weaker trough, but it's still there. But the main thing, I'm going to have to change the colour of the highlighter, the main thing is this ridge that's sitting down across Spain, North Africa, the Mediterranean, because what this is doing is it's dragging up air from a very, very long way south in that sort of a situation. So we will be putting up tropical air with that ridge of high pressure sitting to the south. This is shades of the winter of 97, 98. Not sure if you remember winter of 97, 98. It was a very strong El Nino winter. It was also exceptionally mild, and this is shades of that with that high pressure set there across the western bowl of the Med and Spain and Portugal too. We could be having an exceptionally mild January if that came off. And it's very similar as we get through into February as well. That ridge is still there through the central part of the Mediterranean, albeit it's weakening a little bit. The trough in the Atlantic is coming back, so we're perhaps not as warm as we are in January in terms of the averages anyway, but nevertheless the flow is still coming through the country like that. It's still mild, perhaps very mild, perhaps exceptionally mild. Even the air could still be getting dragged up from a southwesterly or southerly point at times. It's a little bit more changeable probably, but overall that is a very, very grim update if you're wanting a cold winter of 2015, 2016. That is almost as bad as it gets. There's no hints anywhere of any high pressure really within the northern latitudes, certainly not on our side of the northern latitudes around Greenland or Scandinavia. So let's see how the temperatures stack up with this now. It is going to be a bit of a horror show, I've got to tell you that, but we have a look at September first of all. Remember I said this is a in-between pattern, so it could be relatively warm and dry, it could be fairly cool and changeable, and the temperature anomaly isn't really much help either. We're coming out around average. With that, it's quite mild to the east of us, where we've got that high pressure sitting, of course, but because we've got all this low pressure in the Atlantic, are we within a westerly flow, or are we within a southeasterly flow? We'll have a look at precipitation. That may be a little bit more enlightening in a moment, but average temperatures for the signal there for September, milder than average for October, and it is turning more changeable, I think, in October with the jet stream starting to run through the country, something like that, so milder than average month for October. November, well, this is a very stormy month potentially. It is very warm in terms of the anomaly for most of Europe in those orange and red colours. For us, we're nearer normal, and it's because we're bringing in this westerly flow right across the country, and the Atlantic is relatively cool. So in the north, the temperature is about average. In the south, it's a bit milder than average. Perhaps in terms of winter months, November could be the coolest month in terms of the anomaly anyway. And as we go through to December, again, this is looking around average, maybe a little bit mild on average down in the south. Again, it's another very westerly month. I think the flow is going more like that, though, for December. Another very warm month through most of Europe. No signal for anything cold anywhere across northern or Western Europe. January, a very mild month, is signalled then because we've got that ridge sitting around there and it's dragging up the air like that. So it could be one of those Januaries that has days that are more like spring than winter. Notice the cold anomalies down across the southeast of Europe. Whenever you get it warm up here in winter, you'll tend to get it correspondingly cool down there in the southeast. And then finally for February, just to round off the horror show, for anybody that wants cold weather this winter, look at that. Virtually the whole of Europe from Ireland and Portugal in the west to the far east of Russia, or certainly central Russia, it's warmer than average. And even those cooler anomalies down across Greece and the Black Sea have gone as well, and it's got a bit warmer than average. You know, I have to say, I've never seen a chart quite like that, where pretty much the whole of Europe from west through to Russia is warmer than average. But there we go, it's a very mild winter being signalled there by CFS V2, and the only saving grace, of course, is that this is a very long time away, these winter months, so maybe not to be relied upon by any means. Finally, just had a look at the precipitation anomaly, and this is September first of all. Again, we've got that ridge up to the northeast and the east of us, and this is hinting at drier than average conditions through the UK. So it does imply that the ridge is probably more influential through September than the trough. So the flow is probably more easterly, southeasterly than westerly. So maybe a relatively mild and dry September coming up. I've got to do the September month-end forecast very soon. And I'm struggling a little bit with what's going to happen for September. But sort of dry conditions certainly being signalled there. October, we're breaking down into a more unsettled pattern as the jet stream is starting to come back in across the country. So the north is turning wetter than average, while the south is nearer normal. So transitional month probably through October could start off relatively dry, but turning much more unsettled. And then look at this, get through to November, significantly wetter than average month in November, I should say. The reason, in fact, we bring the jet stream through the country, so it's a very unsettled month, significantly wetter than average, and could be a little bit cooler at times, particularly in the north, just because the Atlantic is in such a cool phase at the moment. December looks wetter than average as well. Not as wet as November, but even so, still wetter than average, not just through the UK, but through most of central northern Europe. Jet stream coming through rather like that once again. We get through to January, another wetter than average month. So we are going to have a very wet winter. We're not going to have to worry about droughts next year. A wetter than average month again coming through for January. Remember, the flow is being dragged up like that, so we bring the air up from the tropics. You expect that to be pretty moisture laden. So it could be a significantly wetter than average month, but of course also exceptionally mild. We get through to February, it rounds off an awful winter, if you want a cold winter, because February comes out wetter than average as well. Remember, the jet stream is probably coming back a little bit, going something like that through February. But overall, it's another wet month anyway, and very, very mild, as we've already seen. So the winter months look dreadful. It can't get any worse than that. So this is the low point through the updates, and as we go through the autumn, we'll be having a look at these seasonal models in September, October, November. May well be this is the worst they get, and from here on in, if you want a cold winter, things will steadily improve. I'm going to keep your fingers crossed for you, because if that comes off and you want a cold winter, my word, it is going to be a very, very grim winter for you. But of course, if you want to keep your energy bills down, you don't want it cold and snowy, then that's a good update. In terms of the nearer time frame, that's all just for fun, really. It's not to be taken seriously. In terms of the nearer time frame, we've got a mixed bag for September. It hints at being a little bit dry on average, but the Atlantic looks fairly buoyant. And as we get through to October and November, a steady progression into an Atlantic onslaught, so that by November we really will be under the cosh, if this is right, with a lot of heavy rain, probably gale force winds at times as well. And because the Atlantic's so cold, it could be a bit on the chilly side too. Well, that's the CFS 6 months look ahead for this month. We'll do it all over again in September. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.